LVMH lost 40 billion in value last year. Not because rich people stopped spending, because they stopped buying what LVMH sells. Louis Vuitton, Dior, Fendi, all the brands you think signal wealth. Sales are down double digits. So, where did the money go? Because it went somewhere. Let me show you the 7 things wealthy people are actually spending on right now and why every single one contradicts what you think being rich looks like. Number 1, travel that you can't Instagram. Most people see a wealthy person traveling and think private jets and 5-star hotels. That's not what's happening anymore. Travel is now the number 1 spending priority for high net worth individuals in 2026. 40% are spending more on it than last year. But here's what changed. They're not going where you think. Antarctic expeditions, 3 Michelin star restaurants in cities you can't pronounce, customized itineraries built around experiences that don't have hashtags. The ultra wealthy collectively spend $45 billion annually on this type of travel, not on hotels, on the thing you can't replicate by looking at photos, because the flex isn't showing people where you went. It's having been somewhere that can't be reduced to content. The status symbol is being chronically offline. Having access to circles where you don't need to Google best restaurants in Tokyo because you already know the chef. Take someone who books a 2-week trip through Bhutan with a private cultural guide. No Instagram posts, no airport photos, just an experience that exists only in memory and conversation. The mechanism is simple. When everyone can afford the logo loses value. When everyone can fly business class with points, business class stops signaling anything. So wealth moves to what can't be democratized: time, access, and experiences that don't scale. Now, if you're saving up for a luxury vacation package you saw advertised, this doesn't mean you're doing it wrong. But understand what's happening at the top end. They're not buying trips. They're buying the ability to be places that don't market themselves. Number 2. Healthcare that prevents instead of fixes. Healthcare is the second highest spending priority. 26% of wealthy people are increasing their healthcare spending this year, but they're not spending it on doctor's visits, wellness retreats where the daily rate is higher than most people's monthly rent, places like Ananda in the Himalayas where prices have surged 14% annually. These aren't spas, they're preventative medicine disguised as luxury. The wealthy realized something. Fixing problems is expensive. Preventing them is an investment. Most people wait until something breaks, then scramble to fix it. The wealthy are paying to ensure nothing breaks in the first place. Custom meal plans designed by nutritionists. Preventative screenings most insurance won't cover. Fitness programs that cost more than a used car but add functional years to their life. 70% of wealthy people consume less than 300 calories of junk food daily. Not because they're disciplined, because they've structured their environment to make the healthy choice the default choice. They're paying someone to make it easier to eat well than to eat poorly. Here's the calculation they're running. Spending $50,000 on preventative health today might save $500,000 in medical costs at 70. Plus, you actually get to enjoy being 70. Which raises an obvious question. If prevention is so valuable, why isn't everyone doing it? Because prevention doesn't feel urgent. A heart attack feels urgent. A wellness retreat feels optional. The wealthy have enough margin to think 10 years ahead. Most people are just thinking 10 days ahead. But there's a version of this that works at any income level. The principle doesn't require wealth. Annual checkups, actual sleep, movement that isn't punishment. The execution scales, but the logic is the same. Pay a little now or pay a lot later. Number 3, real estate as identity. 23% of wealthy individuals are increasing spending on real estate and home improvements in 2026. But they're not buying penthouses anymore. Branded residences, tech-enabled homes, properties that appreciate at nearly 11% annually while also being places they actually want to live. Real estate has become a hybrid. Part investment, part identity signal, part utility. Here's what changed. The old model was location. The new model is integration. A home that connects to systems, smart everything, climate control that learns patterns, security that's invisible until you need it. But underneath the technology is something simpler. They're spending money to remove friction from daily life. Every automated system is one less decision. Every integrated feature is time saved. And this technology eventually trickles down. What costs $100,000 to integrate today will cost $5,000 in 3 years. The wealthy are beta testing the future of housing. The other shift is buying fixer-uppers in premium locations instead of finished properties in trendy neighborhoods. Put $200,000 into renovating a place that needs work in an established area rather than paying the premium for something that looks good now but won't appreciate. Same money, different strategy. One maintains value, the other builds equity. Number 4, education is generational leverage. Elite education isn't just a spending priority, it's a wealth transfer mechanism disguised as tuition. The world's top universities have raised fees 8.4% annually. That's not inflation, that's scarcity pricing, because these institutions aren't selling education, they're selling access, not access to knowledge. You can learn anything online now, access to networks, opportunities, and signals that open doors decades later. A degree from certain schools isn't about what you learned, it's about who you learned it next to. The wealthy understand this isn't about being smart. It's about being in rooms where decisions get made, so they pay for preschool, private school, test prep, enrichment programs, and university. Not because their kids need more education, because their kids need specific proximity. This is what researchers call inconspicuous consumption. You can't see it in a photo, but it compounds over decades. Most people spend money on things that depreciate: cars, clothes, gadgets. The wealthy spend money on things that appreciate. And education done right is a hell of an appreciating asset. The network built at 20 pays dividends at 40. Now, this doesn't mean student debt for a prestigious degree is automatically worth it. The math only works if the doors that open actually lead somewhere. But for those who can afford it without debt, it's one of the highest return investments available. The question is whether you're buying education or buying access. One you can get anywhere, the other is gated. Number 5, art that appreciates while you look at it. $45 billion annually. That's what the ultra wealthy spend on fine art. Not because they love art, well, some do. But that's not why it's a spending priority. Art is one of the few assets that provides utility while appreciating. You can't live in your stock portfolio. You can't look at your bond holdings over dinner, but original fine art sits on your wall, increases in value, and signals taste and wealth simultaneously. Buying a $70,000 painting that appreciates 5% annually means they've made $3,500 while also having something beautiful to look at. The painting works. Their money works. And when they sell it in 15 years, they've doubled their investment while enjoying it the entire time. Compare that to a $70,000 car that loses 20% of its value in year 1 and needs constant maintenance. The art market also operates on information asymmetry. Wealthy collectors spend time learning what emerging artists are being acquired by major museums. They track gallery representation. They understand provenance. They're not buying what's popular. They're buying what's undervalued by people who know less than they do. Most people buy art because they like it. The wealthy buy art because they like it, and it's a better store of value than cash. Both things can be true, but art only works as an investment if you know what you're doing or pay someone who does. Buying expensive art you don't understand is just expensive decoration. The appreciation only happens if you're buying the right pieces. Number 6, time-saving infrastructure. This is the invisible category, the thing nobody talks about because it doesn't photograph well. Private concierge services, personal assistants, family office staff, people whose entire job is handling the logistics of life so the wealthy person can focus on the 2 or 3 things they're actually good at. Most people think of time as something you manage. The wealthy think of time as something you buy back. If your time is worth $500 an hour, paying someone $50 an hour to handle tasks that take 10 hours a week saves you $4,500 in equivalent value per week. Multiply that across a year. The ROI is obvious, but it's not just about money. It's about cognitive load. Every decision you make depletes a finite resource. The wealthy pay people to make the decisions that don't matter, so they have bandwidth for the ones that do. Scheduling, travel logistics, home maintenance, meal planning, errands, all outsourced. Not because they're lazy, because they understand that attention is the actual scarce resource. And before you think this only applies to billionaires, consider this. If you make $60,000 a year, your hourly value is about $30. Paying someone $20 an hour to clean your house for 3 hours a week costs you $60 but saves you 3 hours. If you use those 3 hours to work on a side project, learn a skill, or just not be exhausted, the math works. The principle scales. The wealthy just took it to its logical conclusion. Number 7, private investment access. This is where the gap becomes a chasm. The ultra-wealthy control $30 trillion in investable assets, 10% of all investable assets globally, and they're not putting it in index funds. Private equity, angel investments, startups, alternative investments in sectors most people can't access, biotech, AI, fintech, the deals that happen before companies go public, before retail investors even hear about them. By the time a company IPOs, most of the explosive growth has already happened. The early investors already made their money. The wealthy are spending to get access to opportunities before their opportunities. They're paying to be in rooms where founders are raising capital. They're hiring analysts to vet deals. They're joining investment groups that pool capital to access minimums most individuals can't hit. The mechanism is simple but brutal. The best investments require either lots of money or special access, preferably both. If you have neither, you're limited to public markets where information is symmetric and edges are thin. But in 2026, platforms are slowly democratizing this access. You still need money, but the minimums are dropping. What required $1 million minimum 5 years ago might now require $50,000. Still not accessible to most people, but the direction is clear. The wealthy are spending to maintain their edge, but the edge is narrowing. The bottom line, the shift isn't subtle. The wealthy stopped buying things that depreciate and started buying things that compound, experiences that can't be replicated, health that prevents problems, education that opens doors, art that appreciates, time that gets bought back. But the principle works at any scale. You don't need millions to start thinking like this. You just need to recognize the difference between spending and investing. And that shift, that's where everything changes. At Money Anomaly, I break down the wealth building strategies most people figure out way too late. Don't be most people. Subscribe now.